Hey, today we're back to some tracing examples, some nested loop tracing examples. These are probably the trickiest type of tracing that you'll get in Comp Sci 1. So it says for each of the following, trace the block of code showing all work, provide the correct output. All right, so hopefully you have this worksheet in front of you. If not, pause the video and go get this right now so you can take some notes. But let me show you what this is all about. So first one, it starts the same as what you're used to. So set up your two-way chart with work and output. And look for your variables that you're going to be keeping track of. We have an accumulator called sum here. And sum is 0. And we have two for loops. That's what makes this a nested loop. Nested means it's one's inside the other. So in this case, this is the easier of the couple cases we're going to be looking at today. This is a for loop inside a for loop. So we've got out for the outer for loop and in for the inner for loop. Okay. Now the nice thing about a for loop, at least, is you know how many times it's going to run. So first I'm going to show you something, and I don't want you to, don't write this down right now. I'm going to erase it in a second. Okay, so first thing that happens is we go to this public void run. We have a for int out equals 1, so out becomes 1. And then inside that, we have this other for loop. Now this for loop, you're going to get stuck inside this until in isn't less than or equal to 10 anymore. So technically, this first time this outer for loop runs, out is 1, in goes to 1, sum plus equals 1, sum goes to 1. Then I'm still stuck in here, out's not changing. So now in goes to 2, sum goes to 2. In goes to 3, sum goes to 3. And this is kind of obnoxious because this happens 10 times. So we're going to go 5, 6, 7, running out of room, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Finally, once this inner for loop gets to 11, that shuts down this inner for loop, but I'm still stuck inside this outer for loop. So when this inner for loop ends, I go back to the outer for loop. Now out becomes 2. And then the first thing that happens the second time through the for loop is this for loop restarts. So just because in got to 11 before and that ended it, now I'm restarting it. So in starts at 1 again, and I still have sum plus equals 1. So sum's going to go up by 1 again. Sum doesn't reset at 0, so that's going to be 11, and then this is 2, 12, 3, 13, 4, 14, and so on. So since this outer for loop is going to run 6 times, that whole process would take more room than I have on this page. But since we know how many times both of these are going to run every single time, I can do a little shortcut. So let me erase all that, but keep that in mind that that's what's actually happening. It's running a lot of times. And instead, I'm going to write it this way. So when out is 1 in the outer for loop, during that time, this inner for loop runs from 1 to 10. And sum, when it's 1, is going to go up to 1. When it's 2, it's going to go up to 2. When it's 3, it's going to go up to 3. By the time this inner for loop gets to 10, sum will also get to 10. So that's the same as me writing all those individual steps down for that first time through. Now I'm going back. Out is 2 now. Rather than writing 1, 11, 2, 12, 3, 13, I can just say in goes from 1 to 10 again. When in is 1, sum increments up to 11. And by the time it gets to 10 again, sum's now going to be at 20. Now this print only happens when the outer for loop ends, and we got to get to 6. So now out is going to be 3. In restarts going from 1 to 10 again. During that time, what's sum going to go to? 20 to 30. Or 21 to 30, technically. Out goes to 4, while in runs from 1 to 10. sum's going to run from 31 to 40. And out is 5. In goes from 1 to 10. Sum goes up to 41, ending at 50. And out is 6. In goes from 1 to 10. Sum goes up to 51, ends at 60. Once out becomes 7, this outer for loop finally cancels out. And the only thing left is system.out.print. In quotes, we have sum equals, so the words sum equals are going to print out, plus the current value of sum. And the last value of sum that was reached was this one right here, 60. So you're going to see sum equals 60. All right, so that's how we're going to do a shortcut. And I can do that as long as I know exactly how many times each nested loop is going to run. If you have any questions, raise your hand, call me over, and I will hopefully explain that. But it's really important that you understand what happened on this one before you move on to the more difficult ones. Ready to go? All right, here's number 2. So start by setting up your table again. And what variables are we keeping track of this time? Looks like I've got a total. We're going to call that 0. We've got out that gets initialized to 8. And if you look inside, the only other variable is this inner for loop this time. So we've got another in to keep track of. Okay. Now this one's a little bit trickier than the last one, but still not the hardest case. We've got a for loop inside a while loop. So while we got to be careful of, this outer loop is going to run while out is less than or equal to 20. So as long as this variable in this middle column here is less than or equal to 20, I'm not going to be doing these system.out.prints yet. Now inside there we have a for loop. How many times does that for loop run? Well, starts at 1, goes to 20. That's 20 times. So if I count that up, technically when out is 8, in would be 1, total would go to 1. In would be 2, total would go to 2, because I'm plus equaling 1 to total every time. But just like last time, we can say, okay, in's going to go start at 1, it's going to get up to 20. In that time, total's going to get incremented up to 1. And by the time the for loop ends, it's going to go to 20 as well. Once in reaches 20, that'll be the last time through that inner for loop. Then we see out plus equals 5. So out gets incremented by 5 every time. So that's going to be a 13. Now 13 is still less than or equal to 20, so I am still stuck over here. But the inner for loop is going to restart. It's going to go from 1 to 20 again. And in that time, what's going to happen to total? The first time this goes, the second time, you're going to get it to increment to 21. It's going to happen 20 more times, so by the time this is done, you're going to end up at 40. Then out's going to go up by 5 again, so out is now 18, which is still less than or equal to 20. So in runs again, from 1 to 20. Total's going to start at 41 this time. The first time it increments total, it'll be from 40 to 41. And by the time that inner for loop's done, 20 times through, that'll end at 60. We got to put up out by 5. So that's 23. And 23 is not less than or equal to 20. So that makes this outer while loop finally end. And we got two system.out.prints. We're going to have total equals the present value of total, which is 60. And out equals the present value of out, which is 23. Okay, so this one's maybe a little bit trickier because we didn't necessarily know how many times this outer while loop was going to run. It turned out it ran 3 times. So you got to be really careful of your variables. The inner for loop, though, where most of the calculation was happening, was still a specified number of times. So we were able to do that shortcut again. Okay. Now number 3 on the back Turn paper over. Here we go. This is the hardest scenario. We've got a while loop inside a while loop. And that's tricky because I don't know how many times this inner while loop is going to run, and I don't know how many times this outer while loop is going to run. So what I have to do is what I was kind of showing you before I really did the first question, where I actually have to write everything out. I can't take any shortcuts. So while loop inside a while loop is your hardest case scenario. So leave yourself lots of space, write kind of small on this one. There's work, there's output. We've got sum, we've got out, and we've got in. Sum is 0, out is 3, in is not initialized. Okay, so we've got this outer while loop to contend with, as well as this inner one. As long as out is less than or equal to 13, this part of the program is going to keep running. Out is only 3 right now, so it's definitely less than or equal to 13. The first thing that happens in this while loop is in gets set equal to 5. So in is now 5. Now this inner while loop is going to be happening right now, while in is less than or equal to 26. Okay, so now I'm not going to get outside of this space at all until the variable in becomes bigger than 26. Right now it's only 5. Okay, so every time what happens here? Sum goes up by 1. So I'm actually going to put this kind of on the next level here. Sum goes up by 1. In plus equals out. In's going to change. You're going to add out onto it. So when sum becomes 1, in becomes 8. Does out plus equal 4 happen? No, and that's one of the big mistakes people make. They go too far too fast. I'm stuck in these red lines until this in variable, which is only at 8 right now, becomes bigger than 26. So sum goes up by 1 again. Now sum is 2. In plus equals out. Out still 3. Add that on. In is now 11. Still stuck in the red loop. Sum goes up to 3. In plus equals out. Out in becomes 14. But still going? Yup. Sum goes up to 4. In plus equals out. In becomes 17. Still going. Sum goes up to 5. In plus equals out goes up to 20. Still less than or equal to 26. Still going. Sum goes up to 6. In plus equals out. In becomes 23. We're getting close, but we're still going. Sum goes up to 7. In plus equals out. In becomes 26. Can I still go? Yes, 26 is less than or equal to 26, so I have to go again. Sum becomes 8. And in becomes 29. And finally, that 29, which is not less than or equal to 26, breaks you out of this red while loop. And finally, I can say out plus equals 4. So add 4 onto out, and out becomes 7. Now look at how I'm lining this up. I think this helps to do it this way. While I was in this inner while loop, sum was incrementing and in was incrementing. I kept all of those kind of on the same level so that I could see what was happening at the same time. Now since 8 and 29 was the last time that happened, and out went up to 4 after that, I put 7 on a new line, because that's a new thing that's happening. But now look at this outer while loop. While out is less than or equal to 13, is that still true? Yeah, out went up to 7, but that's still less than or equal to 13. So we have to run this whole thing again. And what's the first thing that happens? In becomes 5 again. So in is reset to 5. And now what's going to happen with this while loop? Well, I ended it a minute ago because in was 29, but now in's not 29 anymore. What's in? In is 5, which is less than or equal to 26. So we're doing this again. Okay, so again, these two things are going to go up at the same time, so put them on the same level. Sum plus equals 1. Sum goes up to 9. At the same time, in plus equals out. Now, out is at least 7 now, so it's going to go up faster. So in's going to change. 7's going to get added onto the 5. We're going to have a 12 over here. And And just like last time, this is going to keep going until n is less than or equal to 26, as long as n is less than or equal to 26, and it is right now. So sum plus equals 1, sum goes up to 10. Add 7 onto that 12, we get 19. Still going. Sum goes up to 11. Add 7 onto 19, get 26. It's so annoying. Can go one more time. Sum goes up to 12. N goes up to, add 7 onto that, 33. 33 isn't less than or equal to 26, so that ends the red while loop again. Out plus equals 4 happens after that, so that out variable of 7 is going to go up to 11 now. See, I told you to leave yourself room. And then you look at the blue while loop. 11 is still less than 13, so what does that mean? We run it again. N starts at 5. So we reset to 5 one more time, which means the red inner while loop is also going to be able to start again because 5 is less than or equal to 26. Sum plus equals 1 means sum's going to go up to 13. At the same time, in plus equals out. Out's 11. That's going to get tacked onto the 5. So that's 16 now. Notice how these are on the same level because they're happening at the same time. 16 is still less than or equal to 26, so sum can go up to 14. 11 gets added on to that in value again, so this becomes 27, which is great news because already that's bigger than 26, so inner while loop is done. Out goes up by 4, so 11 plus 4 is 15. Check the outer while loop. Oh, out is 15 now. 15 is not less than or equal to 13, so finally the outer while loop ends as well, which means this madness is finally going to stop, and we can print out sum, out, and in. So sum equals the current value of sum. So look in your chart and find the last value of sum. It's 14. And then out equals, again, look in your chart. What's the last value of out? 15. And then also in equals the last value of in. And if you go all the way down that last column, 27 is the last thing I see for in. So in is 27. All right, so you can see while loop inside a while loop is what you don't want to see because you don't know how many times it runs. You don't have any shortcut. You just have to do it all out because look, it ran 8 times at first, then only 4, then only 2. There's really no way to tell what it's going to be. So it's very hard to take shortcuts, if impossible, with these ones. Okay, make sure you understand that. Again, make a note or raise your hand right now and ask me to come over if you have a question on something that didn't make sense on that one, because we got one more to do. And that is right here. Question 4. Now look at the type. It's a for loop inside a for loop, which could potentially be good news for us. What looks weird about this? Well, for one thing, I have sum plus equals 2, which means I'm going to go up by 2 every time now. But the weirder thing is that both these for loops, out and in, are going down. Works exactly the same way, but instead of going up, this is going to the outer for loop is going to start at 16, go 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. 11 is going to be too small for it. Same with this inner for loop. It's going to go 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, and then 18 is too small for it. But I can do this kind of like I did the first question because I know how many times that inner for loop is going to run. So you can take a shortcut. You don't have to write out every single time. But I would like you to try this one. So start by setting it up. I'll get you set up. I'm going to have you pause it and try it. Here's work. Here's output. We've got sum as our accumulator that we're going to keep track of. That's initialized to 0. And we've got 2 loop variables like before, out and in. Okay, now see if you can go through this, figure out what the output's going to look like. One thing I'm going to say is be very careful and count how many times this is actually running. I even count on my fingers. So do that just to see so that you don't mess it up. Okay, so pause the video now. Try this one on your own. When you're done, got an answer, play the video, see if you did it right. If there's one mistake, that how many times those loops run, that's going to probably catch you up or could potentially catch you up. So I want you to see that when you run it again. So pause it and give it a shot. You paused it, right? Like really, you hit pause and you did it? Because if you didn't, you need to do it now. Because I'm going to be super mad. Okay, assuming you did it, and you're ready to see it, here's the answers. So the first thing you're going to see is that out is going to be 16. While this happens, again, don't write this down. When out is 16, in's going to start at 28. Sum plus equals 2 means sum would go to 2. And then in would go to 27. Because it's going down, sum goes to 4. In goes to 26, sum goes to 6, in goes to 25, sum goes to 8, 24, 10, 23, 11, all the way down to 19. So 22, oops, that wasn't 11, that was 12, 14, 21, 16, 20, 18, 19, 20. And once in gets to 18, that's too small, so it'll stop. So the mistake people make is they look at this, they say, oh, 28 minus 19, that's 9. So this is going to run 9 times. 9 times 2 is 18, so sum's going to go from 2 to 18. But that's not what happened, because this didn't actually run 9 times. Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's actually 10 times. If you're trying to figure out how many times one of these are running, you can subtract the numbers, 28 minus 19, but then you have to add 1. 28 minus 19 is 9, plus 1 is 10 times that it runs. That even works on these. People see this, they see 1 to 10, and they're like, oh, that runs 10 times. But what's 10 minus 1? 9. Plus 1 gives you the actual number of times that runs. 10 minus 1 is 9, plus 1, it runs 10 times. So if you're doing that shortcut math in your head, make sure you do it correctly. Okay, so let's get rid of all those and write this as our shortcut, which we're just going to say is in goes from 28 to 19. And in that time, sum, when it's 28, it's going to go up to 2. When it's 19, it's going to end at 20 because it runs 10 times and it goes up by 2 every time. Okay, so now out is 15 because that's going down also. In resets to 28, it's going to go all the way to 19. When in's 28, sum's going to go to 22. When it gets down to 19, it'll run another 10 times, so it'll go up another 20 to 40. Now out is 14. In goes from 28 to 19. Sum goes from 42 to 60. This goes all the way to 12. So out goes to 13. This runs 28 to 19. Sum's going to go from 62 to 80. But out can equal 12. So one more time. In goes from 28 to 19. Sum's going to go up to 82 and end at 100. When out becomes 11, that outer for loop's going to stop. And the only thing that prints out is sum equals the last value of sum, and the very last value of sum was 100. So you're going to have sum equals 100. All right, if you have any questions on anything that we went over on these notes, please ask me. Write them down or call me over. Because now you should also be getting this sheet, homework nested loop. There's 4 more questions. We've got a for loop inside a for loop, so that's just like the first one we did. Here's the toughest case, a while loop inside a while loop. That was like number 3 on the notes, where you can't take any shortcuts. We have a for loop inside a while loop, which isn't so bad, but there's an extra if along with this one. Be very careful about how many times this is going to run. Think about that. And the last one is kind of like the last one we just did. It's going down. So again, be careful about how many times that actually runs. Okay, but this homework, generally people make a couple mistakes on it. I am grading it, so I would recommend doing it and having me check it before you actually turn it in on the due date. But that's your homework, that's your assignment. Get to work.